Maybe a Chinese passport can't get you anywhere in the world, but a Chinese passport can bring you back from anywhere in the world. A Chinese passport is a passport to the safest place. How would you describe that? It's called the Chinese being awesome. Citizens of the People's Republic of China, when you are in danger overseas, don't give up. Please remember that behind you there is a strong motherland, a strong motherland. The above line was crafted by a famous director in China in the film Wolf Warriors for the Little Pinks. This director's patriotic aura had led him to be a celebrity endorser for Huawei mobile phones. But eagle-eyed Chinese netizens have discovered that he regularly uses an Apple phone. The influence of the movie series Wolf Warriors is so far-reaching and widespread that it has brainwashed the Chinese little pink into believing that the motherland is strong and powerful, and behind them. Especially young international students take it as their responsibility to protect the honor of China under the CCP rule. In their imagination, the US has many enemies, and these enemies are indeed good friends of the CCP. Then, if they quickly show their Chinese passports or even their Huawei cell phones, they can reverse the situation and be released or even protected. So they thought. This is what many Chinese in China and abroad are thinking of the current war in the Middle East, because the CCP's propaganda machine is in full swing, defending and putting in a good word for its good friend. Israel has the right to establish a state. Palestine has the right to establish a state as well. The subsistence of Israelis has been guaranteed, but who is going to care about the subsistence of the Palestinians? What the Chinese have seen on TV is virtually all one-sided information like this. These two Chinese workers in Israel who were enough to be shot once were shot a second time by the good friend of the CCP for declaring that they were Chinese. After being shot twice, they were lying in a suspected hospital bed with IVs, recounting their unfortunate ordeal. On the morning of October 7th, we encountered Hamas militants and our identification as Chinese was ignored. As soon as the militants got out of the vehicle, they started shooting. They couldn't understand us even if you tried to explain. They opened fire and we had to get down on the ground so they could see our hands up. They didn't care who you were, they just opened fire. I was shot twice and was rescued by an Israeli emergency helicopter. The other two Chinese workers who were with us are still missing. For Little Pink, the iron fist struck the Chinese warwolves hard in the face this time. Warwolves are the biggest lie has become the most popular realization among Chinese students in Israel. As Israel is about to launch a major counterattack on Gaza, governments around the world have been taking active steps to evacuate their people since October 13th. Let's take a look at what China did for the Chinese students in Israel. As a Chinese person, I really sympathize with our fellow Chinese students. As we all know, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and war are going on, and we see that the neighboring countries such as Japan, Korea, and so on are evacuating their citizens. But our Chinese students are trapped in Israel. Has the Chinese Foreign Ministry, the Chinese ambassador, the Chinese embassy, and the Chinese government taken any action? Apparently not. This is because recently we have seen on Weibo and other social media platforms like WeChat groups, there are students who want to return to China. They called the embassy but couldn't get through. When they asked questions in the group chat, they were warned by their teachers. We saw an Israeli school where there were Chinese students who might have wanted to seek help, but they didn't get any response. Perhaps the teacher was afraid of the liability. He came out and said, "We students should focus on our studies and don't worry about the state policies. Naturally, the state won't forget us, so let's be patient for a little longer." Some students asked, "How much longer do we have to wait? Other countries have already made arrangements." The teacher responded by saying, "Please be careful when chatting in the group. We are all Chinese. The Chinese embassy is our family in Israel. I hope that students won't complain about their own families because of other people's business, because we are all Chinese." One of the more obedient Chinese students said, "The teacher is right. As long as China hasn't evacuated, it means Israel is safe. The other countries have fled, but China still sticks around. Israel won't be in danger. Believe in the country, believe in the government. The teacher was pleased to hear this. Such a clever student, patriotic, and loves the party. The teacher replied, "Yes, this student has far sights. Students, think about it. Why has the conflict between Israel and Palestine been going on for many days? Yet, we haven't seen any Hamas in the Israeli city or on the streets. Why haven't you fled? Because we all know that the Chinese embassy is here, and as long as the Chinese embassy is here for a day more, Israel will be safe for a day more." It was a really warm answer, but another student asked, "Teacher, why is it that after we called the embassy, it immediately hung up? Why did it always fail at critical moments?" Some students added, "The phone couldn't get through before. Now they simply don't answer it anymore." Other students said, "The embassy phone line is just a setup. I called the embassy and they said that the government didn't have any arrangements yet. If you want to evacuate, you have to figure it out on your own and take responsibility for your own actions." One student remarked, "If your father is an official in China, when you call, the attitude should be different. You can't blame the embassy. You can only blame your father not being a big shot." There was a student in my class whose father was the deputy director of the city's transport bureau. He called the embassy directly from China. The next day, the embassy helped him evacuate. So evacuation is possible, but it depends on who you are. We, the ordinary people, can only wait and see what happens. When the teacher saw this, he came out and said, "Students, please behave yourselves. Your speeches are recorded word for word. Don't think you can talk nonsense when you're in a foreign country. You have to be responsible for what you say online. Don't end up not being able to graduate." So is this to warn or to appease the students? Obviously it's a warning, and it worked, because after that, no more students spoke like that anymore. Instead they said, "We see, thank you for reminding us." Others said, "Yes, we got it, thank you teacher." And another student said, "I know we have a strong motherland behind us. We aren't scared." As usual, Chinese diplomats speak nicely. This is the statement made by the spokesman of the Chinese Foreign Ministry on October 10th. "The Foreign Ministry and our overseas diplomatic missions have issued emergency safety warnings in view of the current situation in Israel and Palestine, advising Chinese nationals against traveling to Israel and Palestine for the time being. We remind those who are already there to stay on high alert, step up safety precautions, make emergency preparations, and get ready to shelter in place. In case of any emergency, please turn to our embassy in Israel and the Chinese office in Palestine for help in a timely manner. We will provide full assistance to Chinese nationals who would like to leave with their safety being ensured." In fact, the website of the Chinese embassy in Israel hasn't announced any rescue action or arrangement. On October 19th, the Chinese embassy in Israel said that Chinese citizens in Israel should make use of the opportunity of commercial flights that are still in operation to return to China or leave Israel as soon as possible. Those who are in a position to do so may choose to drive themselves and use other means of transportation to leave the country. However, the recent cancellation of mainland airline flights between Israel and China has led to a surge in airfares, making it difficult to buy a ticket. A Chinese girl in Israel reported that a flight from Israel back to China was cancelled by China's Hainan Airlines after the outbreak of the conflict. She and her friend asked the Chinese embassy in Israel for help, but they received a cold response, telling them to find their own way. This sparked outrage among Chinese in Israel and other overseas Chinese netizens. They wrote, "I suspect that the so-called embassy of the communists has secretly evacuated. Don't worry, the embassy is surely coordinating the flight, and the ticket costs 15,000 yuan, which is more than US 2,000. Go home or not. This is the true spirit of cutting leaks, always sharpening their sickles, never letting go of any opportunity." Overseas Chinese embassies often say, "We are unable to help, please find your own way, or don't cause trouble for the country." Wolf warriors, it's more than a rumor, it's a small part of a systematic brainwashing mechanism. On October 15th, a screenshot of a group chat involving an international group of 292 Chinese students circulated widely on the internet. It showed many students asking the head of the education department at the Chinese embassy whether China was arranging for the evacuation of the overseas Chinese and stating that students from other countries around them were already picked up by the respective countries. They implored, "Even the Indian students already flew out before us." Instead of responding to the question directly, the Chinese embassy official supplied a link to the group with an urgent message reminding citizens in Israel to be on the lookout and take security precautions. Many Chinese students were disappointed by the official response. One student exclaimed, "The wolf warriors are the biggest lie ever." Others asked when the Chinese embassy was going to condemn Hamas to ensure Chinese citizens' safety and security in Israel. A Chinese embassy official told the students, "This is a warning for everyone in the group. Don't post any irrelevant information here." On October 19th, the Foreign Ministry of the Republic of China, or Taiwan, announced it would start the evacuation operation. On October 20th, Taiwan's Minister of Foreign Affairs told the media at the Legislative Yuan that the evacuation charter plane would take off at 5:40 p.m. local time and arrive at the Rome International Airport at 8:25 p.m. Taiwan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs had reserved enough seats to accommodate all the Taiwanese, but only a few of them took the flight in the end. With free seats available, the staff contacted several friendly countries during the evacuation process to ask if their embassy staff and nationals needed to catch a flight. Taiwan's foreign ministry highlighted that 35 mainland Chinese had been in contact with the Taiwan representative office in the past, hoping to board the chartered flight. But when the chartered flight was confirmed, the Taiwanese side asked for their passports and related information. They stopped responding to any of the requests. The CCP surely has a way to deal with the students who are complaining. In a WeChat group of Chinese international students, someone posted a video recorded by a Chinese student in Israel, describing her situation in the Israeli city of Jerusalem and claiming that the Chinese embassy and the Chinese Students Association had always been there to reassure us and that Chinese airline flights had remained in service.
Hello, family and everyone. I'm Ame, an international student from China. After yesterday's escalation in the conflict, the most discussed topic in the bomb shelter of the dorm building today is whether to evacuate back to China or not. My Spanish classmate, after checking flight tickets for the whole day yesterday, found out that all the flights to Spain were suspended after many phone calls and inquiries. I have also been keeping an eye on the flight ticket situation and learned that flights to China are still running. I can buy tickets on my Cell app. My family and friends are urging me to evacuate Israel as soon as possible. Here, I would like to give you a brief explanation. First, I'm now in Jerusalem, and the distance from here to Israel's Tel Aviv International Airport is about 70 kilometers. Also, at present, transport between the two cities has been completely suspended. Yesterday, air raid sirens were sounding in Jerusalem again, so I think it would be safer for me to stay in the bomb shelter of my dorm instead of going to Tel Aviv in haste. Secondly, our Chinese embassy and the Chinese International Student Association have been assuring us in the group chat and providing us with the information that made us feel safe. The flights of our Chinese airlines have been maintained at capacity and have not been suspended. Therefore, I would like to stay here for the time being and wait and see how the situation develops.
Soon after, a student exposed the lie of this so-called Chinese student in Israel. The IP address of her social media, Xianghongshu, was in Beijing. A Chinese student disclosed that this girl had previously studied in Jerusalem and has now returned to China. She wrote privately to many of her classmates, hoping to find local students to film a video with positive energy. She listed requirements such as the location being in a bomb shelter, making statements that the CCP embassy had been reassuring students, and that the Chinese airliners had been flying to transport students back to China, and so on. After being rejected by her fellow students, the girl took it upon herself to film a video in China, pretending to be in Israel, claiming that she was in a bomb shelter and that other countries' planes were suspended. But Chinese airlines had been kept at capacity and that the embassy and the Chinese Student Association were making active efforts to rescue people, among other misinformation. On October 13th, Israeli officials informed the Chinese Foreign Ministry that 5 Chinese citizens were confirmed killed by Hamas and asked Chinese officials to go and claim them quickly. But so far, there has been no official response from the Chinese government. A spokesman for the Chinese Foreign Ministry reported at a press conference on October 12th that it has been confirmed that 3 Chinese nationals have been killed in the conflict, 2 missing, and several have been injured. He added, "The relevant Chinese diplomatic organizations abroad are making every effort to coordinate the treatment of the injured and urge the foreign sides to make every effort to search for and rescue those who are missing." The evacuation of various countries has shown many overseas Chinese how different the CCP is from normal governments in the world. For example, someone wrote, "Look at the Philippines. Its head of state can get so mad over a small nurse. Why doesn't our country condemn the murders of Chinese people? Why won't the CCP condemn them? Take a look at this banner. It was a slogan that the CCP used in the 1950s. It reads, 'Firmly support the Palestinian and Arab people in their struggle against American imperialism and Zionism.' Here is an interesting summary. When the international community boycotts Russia, it supports Russia. When the international community boycotts Iran, it supports Iran. When the international community boycotts North Korea, it supports North Korea. When the international community boycotts Syria, it supports Syria. When the Hamas kidnaps and kills civilians and abuses hostages, it supports the Hamas. It's the same group of people, and they're the ones who always make their position clear in the first place. They are always on the opposite side of the civilized world. The reason for this is not because of right and wrong, but because of its stance. It's all because of the American imperialists. It's opposed to everything that is supported by the American imperialists, and they support everything that is opposed by the American imperialists. It supports totalitarian countries and terrorist organizations, and the countries or regions it supports are invariably ignorant and poor, while those it opposes are rich and civilized countries. When choosing a place to travel, they often avoid the countries they support and rush to the countries they oppose. If there are opportunities to study overseas, emigrate, or transfer their assets, they will invariably choose the countries they oppose. Most of them are making a salary of 3,000 yuan a month with a pension, but they shout the loudest of them all. They are the grand narrators who have no regard for life and dignity of the individual, but in reality, they ignore and dare not face the injustices suffered by others, and they dare not speak out even if they are being bullied themselves, even if it is by a village chief or the Changguang, a bylaw officer. When the bad guys run rampant on the subway, they hide far away, but they are brave enough to strike at their vulnerable fellow citizens. They are keyboard warriors, barbarians who live in a jungle society.